What's up, guys? On this episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, well, I had some mic technical issues, and I apologize for that. Anyway, the EQ is kind of off. I hope you can still appreciate it. Maybe you wouldn't even noticed until I told you. I don't know. Anyway, you'd think I would have got it right after 100 episodes, but apparently not. Anyways, guys, I hope you can enjoy the show. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I'm Scott McNally. Of course, I'm here with Skip Hill and S2H. All of our programming is brought to you by True Nutrition. I just took my J-Flex, and you can use our code ADVICES for some additional savings. Everything they've got is third-party tested, high-quality health and performance supplements. What's up, guys? This is our first show of the year, episode 101.
You're not going to let me finish my bread, are you? I hate these fucking rules. I just hate your rules. That's all it is. I just fucking hate your rules. It's like a 14-page contract, and I know that's number 3. I'll just put my shit aside. No,
you got to wear a blue stocking cap. Skip, you got to wear sunglasses.
Okay.
Skip, you got to wear a jersey.
You notice Scott's growing a beard like me. He's trying to catch up.
Yeah, you know what, man?
There's some gray in that thing too, baby.
Oh, it is.
You can see it.
I got a lot of light hair going on there. I got lazy is the way that started. Mm-hmm. It was 3 days in, and I was like, yeah, we'll let that ride out for a little bit, see what happens. So, yeah, that's about it. We're going to talk some shoulders today. We've got a bunch of listener questions, stuff related to, we got some SARMs talk. We've got some pro hormone talk, a bunch of bodybuilding talk. We've got an interesting growth hormone question. We're going to commentate on something that Dennis James had said about growing muscle. Got a bunch of stuff going on. But for starters, Happy New Year's, gentlemen.
Happy New Year.
New year, new me.
Hell yeah. You guys set New Year's resolutions?
I don't set New Year's resolutions.
I'm above that, personally. But I will tell you this. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be transparent.
Be transparent, Skip.
In my 50 years, I have never in my entire life wanted to see a year end so fucking much ever.
Cheers to that.
Oh my God. And and I know I'm not the only one. It's just been a long, I don't want to say it's been shitty because, and I wrote about this in my coach log. I always try to find something positive out of anything, whether it's a fucking injury, whether it's shit that happens, in your personal life or whatever else. And I did find a handful of things that were really good that happened this year. But man, just over. And I'm really hoping, I think we all are, that a lot of this doesn't drag into 2021, but some of it is damn sure going to. Dude, as far as, whether it be COVID or elections and politics and social unrest and things like that.
I don't want to sound negative, but I feel like we've got another 6 months of this.
I think it's very possible. I'm telling my clients, and some of them, if they're listening already, I see there's 3 people listening, so yeah, probably not. But anyway, I'm telling them, look, just if you want to compete in 2021, that's cool, but don't plan on it before at least July, because I know what I went through and watching a lot of my clients, and a lot of us ended up prepping 7, 8, 9 months, and it just takes a toll, man. It's pretty rough. So and what'll happen is, I think it's even worse when they don't cancel the show. They push it a month at a time. Yeah. Because then you don't know exactly when it's going to be, and then they push it a month. You think that's when it's going to be. They push it again for another month, maybe 2. You're just better off sometimes if you just cancel it. So it's going to be interesting to see what the promoters do. I was even thinking about Masters Nationals. Gosh, I wonder what they're going to do. Are they going to, try to be a little bit more planful and be like, no, fuck it, we're going to push it to the end of the year just to be safe, like they did this last year? Or are they going to nudge it along, 1 month or 2 months at a time and kind of leave competitors hanging? It'll be interesting to see how they do it, especially now that, a lot of these promoters have had a year to deal with it.
Yeah. I think
how many go broke too?
Arnold is going to be in September, they said, and then the Olympia will be December again. So I think that'll be interesting. I'm drinking out of my commemorative, you probably can't tell, but this is like a hologram cup from the Arnold Classic circa 2012, maybe, when they were sponsored by Milk. Milk sponsored the Arnold.
Chocolate milk.
Yeah, I got 2 of these cups for free. So, yeah, I know. Try not to be jealous, guys.
I'm trying right now.
I'm working on it.
I still have them, as you can see. Anyway, let's talk some shoulders. Shoulder training. I'll be honest, shoulders are the first thing that grew on me, and I hardly train them anymore. I don't have to do much. I focus on chest and my shoulders grow. I feel like I spent way too much time focusing on shoulders earlier on, like giving a whole day to shoulders. Now I'm kind of anti-intense shoulder training because I feel like they grow no matter what. That's my take, and that's where I stand right now, but I might not feel that way a year or two from now. What do you guys think?
S2H, you probably remember, the muscle magazine, say 20 years ago. You were reading them, right?
30.
Back when,
40.
okay, so for quite a while. So, I think about people like, Matarazzo and guys like that. It used to be that there was a ton. Did he just blow his fucking nose?
Yeah.
He just blew his damn nose.
Should I have done that like right in the screen or something?
I would have. Yeah, you should have.
But the shoulder training, layouts and articles and things like that were quite complex. There was a ton of overhead pressing, and it's funny to see how it's evolved. Shoulder training has evolved over the last 20 years because, and for good reason, there's not as much shoulder pressing, overhead pressing, behind the neck pressing, with the exception of the small minority of us who have kind of brought it back kind of out of the closet or whatever you want to call it. There's just not as much focus on, and I think that's why there's just so much work that gets done between chest and back. And it's funny, I was thinking about this with back because back training is a lot different too, and how it relates to the shoulder complex. There is a direct relationship because Arnold used to do more of a bent over row. When you used to do barbell rows, your shoulders relative to your waist or your hips, they weren't as high. You weren't maybe parallel to the floor, but you were damn close.
Yeah,
you would stand up on a bench because you had to, you felt like you had to stretch everything out. Same with like long pulley rows and stuff. It was just a different technique. And these days with the shoulders higher and everything else, you're getting even more rear delt work and more trap work than how these exercises were done, 20 years ago. So between chest work and back work, especially rowing, there's a lot of shoulder work in there. And I just wrote some, I think it was in my coach log a few weeks ago, and I got a couple people who responded to it. And, every now and then somebody wants to argue, and that's cool. That's fine. But one of the things I said was the focus, how I approach shoulder training, not only with myself, but with my clients, is I tend to focus more the bulk of the shoulder session on side delts because I feel that the front delt and the rear delt get hit so hard. That's not to say that I condone not training the front and rear delt. That was the argument, which clearly I stated in my coach log that was not the case. But people sometimes read what they want to read, and if it doesn't fit their narrative, then it never was said. So I think it's still important. You got to train all three heads, but it's safe. I think the side delt, and that's that look from the front, obviously from the rear too, but from the front as far as width, the shoulder to waist ratio and things like that. That's where you're going to get that width. A lot of the width is just primarily in the side delt.
Why is it that some people have such a hard time growing their shoulders, where other people like myself, they were the first thing that popped out?
Well, I think there's a genetic component, but at the same time, I think it's a lot of times the same thing with arms. There's a lot of indirect work, and the muscle group, the complex, really becomes overtrained. And then when something doesn't grow, what's the first thing that people do? Well, I'm not training enough, so I'm going to train more. Yeah. Whether it's arms or shoulders. It's funny, it never happens with legs. They don't think, I'm going to train legs more. But that's usually what happens, I think, with shoulders and arms. There's just a lot of indirect work there. And when that happens and you've got too much work going, then you can't recover. And if you can't recover, then you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
Your shoulders are used in all upper body exercises. They're probably second to biceps for the most overworked, especially your front delts, overworked muscle. I never did a lot of shoulders. I remember back like in powerlifting in high school, we did, behind the neck presses, military presses and stuff. My shoulders always grew good. So I had to refine the rear delt some because, I didn't hit it a whole lot for a while. But I never did a lot with shoulders. I might do some Arnold presses, dumbbell presses, some side laterals, some rear delt work, maybe 3-4 sets, 3-4 exercises total. Get it over with.
You bring up the Arnold dumbbell press. Let's go at it over this Arnold dumbbell press. You
Arnold
like
didn't
it,
even like
right?
him.
Because you
Arnold,
did them. I mean,
Arnold didn't even like him.
I'll tell you why I don't like them. You do like them, Scott?
But you got to be careful. You
guys.
can't go too heavy on them.
You guys
can't
say
let
what
the
you want to
dumbbells
say.
get driven way down into your chest.
You guys say
Well,
what
that's
you
the
got to
thing.
say
Go
about
ahead.
this, but I got to tell you a story after because I
Okay.
heard a story Arnold actually said about how he invented these.
Gotcha. Here's my hang up with this exercise. I don't like rotation under. Okay, you're following me. Okay, I see it now. I don't like rotation under. I say heavy resistance. Pretty much any resistance. There's something about it that I can't explain to you why. I can't explain the mechanisms, but I think that rotation is just not a good idea for the large majority of people. I think over time, I think it would wear on people's shoulders, and I don't think it would be very good, whether it be joint integrity or tendon, whatever. That type of rotation, it makes me cringe.
Well, I got bad shoulders. It actually feels good on them.
Yeah.
When you do it, I could take it and I can say, okay, I can see how the bottom of the movement starts with, it's very, very strong front delt. And then as you rotate, of course, and especially when you lock out, a lot of that resistance transfers to the side delt too. And if you're doing them, like dumbbells or barbells, the stabilization, the rear delt has to work too. Overall, it makes sense. I just don't like that rotation. There's just something about it I'm not comfortable with.
So,
it's okay. Somebody's got to do them. I'll do them.
Yeah, exactly. And what is that? That's just the preference or the difference. I can't explain why I just don't. Logically, it seems to me that it's just not a good idea. And yet you've probably done them for years and you haven't had any problems and they work great. And some people, they do. I see them done quite a bit in the gym.
They actually felt even better after I broke my collarbone.
I wrecked my shoulder doing them, like literally.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah, I wrecked my shoulder doing them. But so when I worked for Bally, you guys remember Bally?
That's a long time ago
now. Yeah, I was a personal trainer. Yeah, Bally's.
Yeah, okay.
I was a personal trainer there. And the guy who was our district manager, he taught classes that we did. And like if you took additional classes, then you could get paid more because you become like a level 3 trainer and then a level 4 trainer. Ooh. So yeah. So I was working on one of those classes one weekend and I was with the district manager and he told us the story because somebody had asked, they had this big thing. And because Bally's was a big company, Arnold was brought to this event. And so all the big wigs and stuff from Bally's were talking with him. And he said that, so back in the Gold's Gym days, they had all the photographers that were in there. And they were just walking around taking pictures of everyone. And if Arnold was doing the same thing that everybody else was doing, they'd take pictures of him, but then they'd take pictures of everyone else too. He said when he started doing stuff that was weird and stuff that was different, then he got more attention. And so he came up with the Arnold press, and lo and behold, what happened? He said all the flash bulbs started going off. So
now Skip's doing
kind of like IG 30 years ago.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
1970s version of Instagram. I got to come up with some shit to get some attention.
Yeah. Well, I put some context to it, though. I mean, I don't think I ever went above maybe 35 or 40-pound dumbbells with it. And that's back when I used to press like 120s, 110s.
So it's not an exercise that you would naturally go real big on. That I agree with. Yeah.
So here's my question to people like that. Then if you could press the 120s, what are you really getting out of the 30s?
You want to call that
it was more of it wasn't something I'd start out with.
Yeah.
So, it's just it was a good mid finisher exercise.
I think one thing
you have to remember not everybody does
slow movement, nothing you're going real crazy with.
Yeah.
That's an exercise that would not be involved in like a training protocol that is high intensity, low volume. That would be a higher volume, more variety, more exercises, and maybe a finisher. I get it. I understand. I mean, I think it's got its place if it's done correctly. For those people who, aren't going to go very heavy with it, they're going to use it as a finisher and they don't have shoulder problems. I don't know, something to that effect. Then you might get away with it.
Billy Ryan brings up an interesting point. And I think that this is kind of where we talked a little bit about this topic before we got started. And I know where we really wanted to move into was rear delts. And he says guys who don't train their rear delts are quite apparent. That it can change the side chest. Actually, really like all the side shots, I think. It gives you a certain level of dimension that if you don't have good rear delts, that is something it comes down to any body part. You know, if you aren't doing a lot of front and rear delts and they suck, then you should probably work on them. But if they do look fine, then don't. You know, you don't have to blow it away. But I can tell you, I remember in myself that I didn't train rear delts at all when I first started training. I didn't really know about them. And then once I discovered them, I started training them, and then it was a game changer for me. I remember, and they responded really well too. Like 3 months later, they were already popping. But let's talk a little bit about rear delts, guys.
Rear delts. No,
if you don't have rear delts, it does look bad.
I'll tell you what. Take any pro and watch their back double bicep. And what you're going to notice, and this, I always tell people, if you want to know why a pro is a pro and the amateur is an amateur, you can look at their size and you can look at their condition and everything else. But this is what I'll tell you. This is what'll tell the tale every single time. Watch the back double bicep. And if their side delt is the smallest in a back double bicep, if it's the smallest muscle of the shoulder complex, if their rear delts and their front delts are as big or bigger, that's why they're a fucking pro. The side delt is typically, and so on the other hand, amateurs tend to have much more size in their side delts, and their rear and front delts are usually weaker. Or there's an imbalance where the front delt is very strong relative to the rear delt. The rear delt almost looks like it doesn't, it's just not there. But it does. It makes up a huge, huge part of the shoulder complex, whether it be, you make a good point with the side tricep, the side chest, and everything else. But that back double bi, that rear double bi, that side delt should be smaller than the other two heads. You're going to see it in 99 out of 100 pros.
If you look at a lot of competitors that have, let's say, I'm going to just give you a general assumption. They've been lifting for 5 to 7 years. They start competing once or twice. Then they really get into it. One of the main things people go, damn, I need more of is rear delts, because they got kind of neglected at the start. And, because I've been with a ton of people that, hey, I need more rear delt, because they just never did them, or they didn't do much for them. Yeah. And it seems to be something somebody's trying to make up for when they get in a higher level competition. They got to have that rear delt.
And it's kind of an odd situation because the front delt tends to grow more during chest work. They grow indirectly. They're kind of a secondary muscle when you're training chest. And the rear delts don't. You would think that they would from rowing and things like that. And I think the rear delt gets a lot of work, but it's such a small muscle that it's almost like it gets used to. Yeah, it gets used to the back row movements. Mm-hmm. And you really have to, think about it. You can row, 225, 275, 315, but you're going to dig into some rear delt laterals, usually with 35s, 40s, maybe 45s. And that's what's going to make them grow. It's kind of bizarre when you think about it. The rear delt does not act like the front delt when it comes to progress and indirect work, in my opinion.
I used to use T-bar rows where you put your pad, chest in the pad, and go with a light weight. And instead of rowing it like a back row, I'd row it with my hands and my elbows coming out, so my hands coming up towards the front of my delts. And the problem, you can get a lot out of rowing for your rear delts, but most people look like they're screwing, like they're in the middle of an orgy, humping up and down all over things and moving. If you back the weight off and use really good form, it'll hit the rear delts. Yeah. Once you start swinging and swaying a little bit and trying to use momentum, they're out of the play.
I think another thing that gets lost too is if you're going to press overhead and you have weak rear delts, don't use machines as much and don't use the Smith machine. The rear delt acts as a stabilizer in an overhead press movement. And I'll tell you what, if there's anybody listening who does not do either dumbbells or, regular barbell overhead presses, push press, behind the neck press, that sort of thing, start doing them without a machine and without a Smith machine, and tell me if your rear delts don't blow up simply just from stabilizing that weight during that movement. It's pretty crazy.
All right. Well, it sounds like we got some good stuff out here. Let's take a quick break, guys. Then we'll come back and we'll answer a bunch of questions. Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for watching another podcast here at Think Big Bodybuilding Media. And thank you to our great sponsor, TrueNutrition.com, for making this all possible. TrueNutrition.com is owned by Dante Trudell, the creator of DC Training. He wanted to create a supplement company that offered high-quality, third-party tested supplements at a fair price. High-quality protein powders, just about every type you could think of. Huge variety of flavors, plus health and performance supplements. Check them out, TrueNutrition.com. And hey, if you use our code ADVICES, you directly support our podcasting. Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the program. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I'm Scott McNally. Of course, I'm here with Skip Hill and S2H. We're back. Got my shake right here. It's a Team Skip blend from True Nutrition. And yeah, what do we got? We got a bunch of questions. I know, Scott, we were supposed to talk SARMs today. That was one thing. It wasn't technically a question, but we were supposed to talk SARMs.
Let me warm my brain up.
That's all I got. That's all I know. What's up with SARMs?
What about them? Oh, you want me to talk about them? Oh, well, I just watched that. I watched that Nat Geo special. And it was what was the name of the show, Scott? Trafficked.
Yes.
Yeah, it had a Tony Huge on there, and he was the best marketing dude. Dude scored the biggest 60 minutes of free marketing ever, but it was all about SARMs, and so it got in my head. So I was thinking about it.
He was Skip. You didn't watch it, but it was interesting, and they did it really well. And the way they let me ask you this, Scott. What do you think the general public will get from that show? What do you think that they will get? How will they read? Because I mean, at this point, that makes Tony Huge a representative of bodybuilding. How do you think the general public will read that?
So this isn't a knock on him or anybody on the show, but the perception of an average person, I would think, I can kind of speak for a normal person, but not, is they probably get a more or not a better view of bodybuilding. Probably a more distorted view. And it was a little complex because obviously the people that produced the show didn't know anything about steroids because it was really kind of all over the place a little bit. But I don't think when you're talking about, so there was a lot of talk about this SARM that he had it in a vial that didn't have a label on it, something he's coming out with. And I don't think the average person, I would think, wouldn't even know what a SARM is. Okay. And so I think would have been confusing for people watching it. And the whole concept of that series, Trafficked, is about, trafficking humans, trafficking cocaine. She's following this trail of what's going on in the world. That particular program really didn't have anything to do with trafficking so much that I could, in my opinion. Okay. But he scored big, dude. Whenever they hit him up for that, I'm sure he jumped on it because it was a Tony Huge supplement company marketing bonanza for 60 minutes, and he took advantage of it. But yeah, come on. They were showing like a pool party. Everybody's got, how many pool parties you go to? People are walking around with a syringe on each ear, and everybody's just pinning each other, like, hey, buddy, bonk.
Unless you're with Tony. When I was with Tony,
I don't know. Maybe with him it's normal. I just never seen nothing like that. But
when I was with Tony at the Olympia, we were at City Athletic Club. He had a syringe on his ear. There.
Who did?
Tony.
Who? Oh, okay. Well, then there you go.
He's kind of eccentric, I guess.
Yeah.
Listen, the people who did that documentary, they knew full well who he was. They had a background because typically when you do something like that, you do want to sensationalize it. You want to have a little bit of shock value, and they got what they asked for. I don't think it's any coincidence that he ended up on there. My opinion. I didn't see it.
No,
I know enough
no one else would get on there probably.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. They knew. They had heard through, I'm sure, numerous people, and they went after him, and they got him, and they got exactly what they wanted. And again, I didn't see it, but I know enough about the guy that everything you're explaining, I didn't see it. I know this is how it went down.
But the average person would have been really lost, I think, just watching that.
What was that injectable SARM he had? So So here's the thing.
He never said, but I'm pretty sure I know what it was.
I'm going to set it up. Let me set it up for a
Okay.
second for Skip and for everyone else. He's at the Olympia, which I saw him there, and he told me he was working on this thing with Nat Geo. In fact, we did like a little 2-minute video that I threw up on the internet, and he said, but we can't say the name that it was National Geographic he was working with at the time. But he was there helping this kid who competed as an amateur in Classic. And the way they set it up, they're like he got smeared. He didn't catch the judge's eyes in the first round in in prejudging, and they're like, but he's hoping that he can muster up some points in the second round and make a comeback.
Because that happens all the time.
Amateur bodybuilding, we know that it's all judged in the morning. You just come back and pose, and so Tony was like, all right. If you want, we could do a real dangerous cocktail. We'll do a 3-hour transformation with you right here for Nat Geo. And they took him back to the house and they gave him some
insulin.
Growth hormone. Yeah. You take
Insulin.
it from here. Take it from here.
He gave him Humulin R, Growth, IGF, DES, some kind of what's that stuff from Intense Muscle, Skip? The
Adenosine monophosphate.
Yes, that thing.
Yeah,
gave him some of that. He gave him, how many units of growth did he give him? 10?
It was like 5.
5?
Yeah, it wasn't crazy.
Then he had him eat rice and cereal. I can only take it in context.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I totally cut
I can only take it in context.
The only thing that worked was the AMP, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, the insulin.
The kid actually looked a little more vascular.
Yeah.
He started to sweat because AMP was making him sweat. But when he got on stage, I don't think he looked any different. I don't really get the growth IGF thing with it. Don't really know what that's about.
Yeah.
Oh, and he gave him another shot of his new SARM that's not labeled. That obviously is a little painful going in because the kid was like wincing every time he gave it to him. Because basically they took the SARM all the time. And like, if you had to go to the bathroom, he took it. If he went to lunch, he was like toting this shit around with him. Everywhere they went, they're in the car doing it. It's like, hey, I got to talk on the phone. Here, you need some more of my SARM. Stick him with it. But it's an injectable form. I'm sure he's coming out with it. There's really only one thing it probably can be. I would think is probably C6, which is is not very bioavailable, and so they put a cyno group on it, so it makes it injectable, and it's S23 is what it's called. It's either that or there's a Barrett Myers Squibb has a new one out. I forget the name of it. It's like BMS5 something that probably can be converted to an injectable. But most SARMs are pretty bioavailable orally. That particular one isn't, so that's what I'm thinking. He probably is the one he's using for this product. But most of them are pretty bioavailable. There's no alpha alkylation. They're not methylated. So, that's what I would think. Now, there's some other trial ones out there, but you also got to remember too, people call stuff SARMs that aren't really SARMs too. And I'm not saying his isn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was, but there's like people say MK677 is a SARM. It's a secretagogue. It's not a SARM.
Yeah. I thought for some reason it was in the same family at some point. No,
like YK11.
Made sense. Yeah.
People throw a lot of these stuff into the SARM category because it's catchy. Mm-hmm. It's a cool name. It's a SARM. When really you got Austerin, Ligandrol, Red 140, S23, S4. Remember the old one? Anadrol, stuff like that. But there's not a whole lot of really true SARMs. And really S23, the C6 conversion, is really not as selective as a SARM should be. It's actually a little more unselective. So it's kind of like it is a SARM, but it's a little more aggressive. But there's a lot of SARM stuff. It's just SARMs are. I think people get confused by them because people group shit in the category that's not really a SARM, and then you have to figure out what is what. But look at the ratios of SARMs. I don't really see where. You'll read these articles, people sell them, and they're like, oh, they're just as good as testosterone. No, they're not. If your milligram per, let's take like LDG, was it 544 ligand draw, whatever it is. No, it's 40 something, 4036 or 33 or something. So it's like milligram to milligram ratio wise, similar to testosterone, anabolic to androgenic. Okay, but what are you going to take? 1,000 milligrams of that stuff a week? I mean, I don't really get it. And plus, all your steroids have other pathways to growth. A SARM just binds to the androgen receptor. Testosterone, aromatase, conversion. If you take an oral in the liver, IGF release, some steroids, Dynabol lowers your cortisol. I mean, so there's a lot more things that steroids, anabolic steroids, do for you for growth. A SARM is a one trick pony. It's an androgen receptor modulator. Now, I'm not saying it can't work, but there's no way on earth that a SARM is going to give you what a steroid can, even in like dosing. You'll see people say, "Oh, you can take Asterin and it's like taking a high dose of Anavar." Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's impossible because the anabolic to androgenic ratios of steroids are much higher. And you don't have any other pathway of growth through SARM. So, do they work? Yeah. I still think they're more of a chick drug, or maybe somebody just wasn't use steroids. But like some of these, like that S23, is pretty suppressive. The one, the BM, the one from Bayer Myers Squibb, that thing's got a pretty high suppression rate for HPTA. I mean, it's like 30 something times more than any other SARM. The S23, you're probably going to get suppressed off of it if you take it for about a month.
From what I've seen, I've used Asterine with a few clients that were natural otherwise, and they saw a little bit of suppression from it.
Asterin's the lightest one,
but they still saw something. It wasn't completely selective as far as what I had seen in my experience. It wasn't a totally free lunch.
Well, I'll put this to you this way too. So Asterin MK2866 was designed by Merck, which is owned. GTX and Merck are the same company. So GTX brought that started testing it in 2009. Okay. And now S23, which is the newer version, is also under trials with GTX. So what does that tell you? GTX decided that Asterin probably doesn't have what it takes. And a lot of these have been in clinical trials with them since 2012, 13. I don't think Big Pharma, sometimes when Big Pharma doesn't release something, people think, oh, it doesn't work. Well, no, it doesn't make them enough money. That's what they look at. Is this going to make us $1 billion or whatever they need to make off everything? And so they don't bring it out. But I think with Asterin, with GTX now working with S23, I think they've kind of decided that Asterin MK2866 is probably not the one they want to go with if they're going to go with something for, male hormone replacement type stuff.
Yeah. Skip and I don't know a lot about SARMs. We don't do the SARMs.
Well, I mean, my brain opened up because I used to kind of deal in that realm for a while.
Yeah.
So sometimes things get trapped like behind my crusty one brain cell and has to come out.
Yeah.
So
there are two type of people though that make the claim that SARMs are like steroids. The first one is the owner of the SARM company.
Yeah.
The second one is someone who uses SARMs typically has not used steroids. So it's probably so much more progress than they were seeing before. And it's so obvious that started when they started the SARM that they make that comparison, having never used anything like Anavar or anything that they can compare it to. Because anybody who has taken any type of steroid and takes a SARM is going to be pretty disappointed. They would never make that claim.
I think too, one of the attractions to SARMs was they fell in the gray area for a while. Now they are legal to purchase now. So they're scheduled. So they're scheduled as they're testing them. So when the pharmaceutical companies test them, it's not FDA approved. It's still illegal to sell for human use. But at one time they fell into kind of that gray category. So I think people that didn't want to go to completely to the dark side or wanted to stay in that kind of quote unquote legal realm went the SARMs route. But now, it's still illegal to sell them or use them.
Check this out. Andrew Nolan says, we use Asterine 1 milligram intravenous for chronic bone muscle wasting conditions for inpatient in the hospital I worked at in Florida.
Yeah, that's one of the uses for it.
That's crazy. I didn't know they were doing that.
And SARMs most of them don't have a lot of side effects, because it's a selective androgen receptor. So it selects mostly the tissue and the bone.
Yeah.
So it's not going to the prostate, in places like that. So yeah, there's some upside to it from a side effect standpoint, but I know somebody took some of that S23 and freaking blew up like a water balloon. Had blood pressure went up pretty high.
Yeah.
So.
Now, this isn't Andrew's problem because he just provided valuable information. I know myself when I was reading it, I was like, wow, I didn't know that. But let me tell you, there is at least one guy right now listening to the show going, if I just crush that shit up and put it in water, I wonder. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
All right. We got a bunch of questions here, guys. I'm going to head over to the group. Anybody who's got any questions here watching the live feed, feel free to throw them in. I see we got a couple of them posted. We will get to your questions. We're going to start right here, though. All right. What do we got? I don't know if we want to do this one. Alex Wainvin, he says, how about a compilation of the best, worst ideas or crazy questions on gear, training, diet, etc. that you've ever been hit with by New Year's resolution crowd in the gym or on social media?
Oh God, we don't even have the time. We could go on for days, I'm sure.
Right.
I think the one thing that this might not be exactly what he's looking for, and I understand this, but the one thing that pops into my head that drives me nuts about New Year's resolutions is the 4 to 5, maybe 6 days prior to New Year's, when you're with a group of friends and there's that person that has had just a little bit too much to drink and they feel like they need to tell you about all the things they're going to do after the first of the year. They've got a plan in place and all that sort of shit. But as far as the details of specifics, man, I don't know that I can. I probably will if you guys talk about it and you come up with a couple things. I'll think of something, but off the top of my head, I'm going to struggle to come up with an example. There's so much shit.
Hey, well, I will throw in there. I do New Year's resolutions, actually. I know that I think it's like the anti thing to do because I feel like everybody always shits on New Year's resolutions, and I get it because there is that guy who's like talking about all the things he's going to do.
Yeah, because I don't think they're bad in general. I don't think it's a bad idea at all.
People roll their eyes because it's like, and I think what is it? It's like the I don't even know what the percentage is. I'll make it up right now. 93% of all people who make New Year's resolutions quit them in the first 3 weeks of the year.
Just keep your resolution to yourself, though. You don't need to broadcast it. Especially when there's such a high rate of failure. Just keep it to yourself. Have your little goal and don't tell anybody, especially when you're drunk, about how your diet is going to be so great and you're going to lose so much weight. Just keep it to yourself.
I do. So I try to set goals related to business. And that's initially what I did starting like 6 years ago. I was like, okay, this year, one of the years it was I want to buy a car with money it's when I had my day job. I was like, I want to buy a car this year. I want to do it with cash, and I want to do it specifically just with money I've made training. Like that was the goal that I set for myself. And then I was like, holy shit. Like once you can achieve things, I think part of me, I shit on the idea before that. I think part of me was scared that I would make a resolution and then fail. But now I see it as like a way to like, okay, it's the end of the year. Reflect on my previous resolutions. Did I meet them? And if not, then why? And then what can I realistically try to achieve this year? Now I do them in like business, personal life, spirituality, I guess you'd call it, not like traditional, like holy spirituality.
Amen, brother.
Yes. Amen.
I think the listeners want to know, are you still driving that Chevette?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I got it for $500. It took me 11 months to save.
I wonder if you still want to build your gym. You were bicycling at home.
Yeah.
In a little wagon.
But seriously, guys, this year, my resolution, I'm going to have the sickest abs. I'm going to be in the awesomest shape. You guys are going to, no, I'm kidding. So what were we even talking about? I can't even think of anything like the dumbest question because usually it's like I have this thing, these reflectors where those things bounce off of me now. And I
can say this. It's not, and I'm not saying this because it sounds like the right thing to say. My clients, really, Don't ask stupid questions. Sometimes they feel like they are because they might be basic or rudimentary, but they're not stupid questions. The stupid questions come from people, and I'm running the risk of offending somebody here, but it's when you get those messages that are out of the blue and they're DMs or they're, after my articles on Elite FTS, not all of them, but those are where you can find some pretty odd, crazy questions. It's not usually, I don't deal with that too much with my clients.
Oh, we just got a really good point about making resolutions. So get this. So the problem with sharing goals, the person gets the satisfaction of keeping the resolution. So they don't, okay, here's the deal. Like once you say it, if I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to get in great shape this year, I'm going to have abs. And then you're all like, oh, good for you. Good for you. And then it's like, I get that satisfaction of having done that thing without even having done it. And then I run my mouth to my other friends and they're like, oh, good for you.
I completely 100% agree with that. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people, in my opinion, don't keep those resolutions to themselves. It's almost attention seeking, really.
Yeah. Matt, I think you should have longer term goals than doing it once a year. You should have a plan for years. Setting a New Year's resolution is a short term goal. Maybe you could have a New Year's resolution to like not watch porn. I don't know. That's probably a good short-term goal. Maybe.
Shitty. That's a shitty resolution.
Well, yeah, it's like terrible. I wouldn't do it, but I'm just saying. Yeah. But like you always get I'm going to gain 20 pounds next year. Okay, well you better straighten out of McDonald's so you ain't gaining 20 pounds of muscle. Yeah. All right. So I mean, I look at things in a longer-term basis than that. So that's why I don't really get the New Year's resolution.
I call a year though. That's more than a short term. I call that a medium term goal. I don't think there's any problem with having that, though. You can have.
So it's the 1 in 72nd goal of the average death of a male in this country, 72 years old.
I call
you just set a 1 in 72nd goal.
Yeah, I call that a medium-term goal in the scheme of things. 5 years is great too. I think you could have both.
I mean, if it works for you, it works for you.
There you
go for it. But
that's what I think.
For me, I look at things in a longer-term sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I want to set a goal, I could set it June 1st. August 1st.
How about like somebody who wants to quit smoking?
We don't like quitters.
You know what I mean, though. Like listen, because you know what, when you quit, there's going to be relapse. It could be a process. Okay. Some guys will just put it down and they don't pick it back up. They're done. But it's like, hey, this year I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to commit to it, whatever it takes. By the end of the year, I'm going to be done. That's something where a 5-year goal would be like, I'm going to quit smoking in 5 years. I'm going to quit smoking the next decade.
I could see that. Maybe there's some stuff out there, but I think some people make goals that are just unrealistic.
Yeah. That's I think a huge thing. We could probably relate that to bodybuilding because, like, I think that if you're going to compete, you need to set up a realistic goal, meaning like a realistic time frame, pick a realistic show, have realistic expectations.
Well, that's not realistic right now, picking a show.
Yeah. You know what I mean, though? So, I think that the first thing you need to learn is how to set that up. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to steer it back to bodybuilding. That I think that the thing that happens is that people who don't know anything, they set goals that they can't achieve. Like, I'm thinking of is he my cousin? He's my cousin's husband. James, you're probably not watching this, but if you're watching this one's for you.
What are you talking about? Oh, your cousin's a girl. Okay.
Yeah, my cousin's husband. He started competing. We started talking. He competed in October, and then he had this grand plan of turning pro. It's in a natural organization, and like a classics type division. And now he told me he's getting ready for prep. He's going to do his next show in May, but he told me his goal was to be bigger. He's not setting himself up for success. I don't know.
No.
Sorry, that was just on my mind.
Are you saying because it's not measurable? It's just his goal is basically relative. I mean, it's just
not realistic.
It's not realistic.
You just said bigger, though. I guess. What did I miss about not being
bigger in 4 months?
Yeah, he's a natural guy. Right. Natural guy who just competed in October.
But he didn't say how much, right? He didn't say how much bigger he was going to be. He just said
he wanted to be bigger.
You want
to get bigger, but that's what I'm saying. It's not very black and white. Yeah, it's very subjective. I would agree.
He was the smallest guy and he was the smallest guy on stage by far. And next time he got on stage, he wants to turn pro, basically.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I'm just going to use this example. Mark Hoffman from Michigan. He was, 17 or 18 years old, came in dead last in the Teen Kalamazoo, put on 100 pounds in the next year, came in at 19, won the teenage and won the men's division open.
How much
in 1 year? 100 pounds.
What's his name? I got to find this guy.
Mark Hoffman.
Can't get my shit to straighten up here. The wrong way.
He's an old school dude from Southwest Michigan. I don't want to give too much information away because I don't know if he'd appreciate it.
He gained 100 pounds in 1 year?
He gained 100 pounds in a year.
Must have been on SARMs.
And he was a bona fide badass. I remember because he was about two, maybe 3 years older than me. And I remember seeing him and I just remember thinking, man, that's what I want. I want to be like him.
Dude must have like zero myostatin.
You got to figure, man, if you're 19 and you not only gain that much, but then you go and it's a local show. It was a Kalamazoo. It wasn't anything big. It wasn't the state, Michigan State show. But the point is to go from being dead last and gain 100 pounds and then not only kick everybody's ass in the teenage division, but kick everybody's ass in the men's division too. He went on to, I think, win the Central States and stuff. And then after that, he didn't keep going after that, but just freak genetics and would train like a machine.
How long ago was this?
This is years. This is late 80s, early 90s. It's a while ago.
Where was he from, you said?
He's actually in my DVD, the TRT DVD. I'm talking to a guy while I'm doing hack squats while I'm warming up.
Oh, wait. That didn't work. Never mind.
That's just a link or something.
Did you say he was from West Virginia?
No, Michigan.
Oh, because West Virginia people got some they got some genetics out there.
Oh, I got like a video of him, I think. I think this is him. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can't save any of this shit. What's up? Oh,
sorry, I got my sunglasses on and not my regular glasses, so I'm going to have a hard time. You have to make it really big.
I can't get it to come up. Anyway.
I guess my point is when you make goals like that, though, sometimes for the large majority of people, they are going to probably be unrealistic. I don't think it's bad. Here's what I think. I think if you set a couple realistic goals that are attainable and you set one that you're not sure you can get to, I think that's pretty good goal setting. Because you don't ever want to just cut yourself short and achieve everything, and yet you don't want to set all your goals so high and then not be able to achieve them, and it just wipes you out and it wipes your motivation out, that sort of thing too. I think it's also a red flag that if you're making the same goals every year, you should probably change what a little bit of your goal setting.
Well, I have the same goal every year. That's to live through the year.
Well, Matt,
can I keep that one? Is that okay?
You can keep it.
Matt, I can't pull your study up. I can't click on the link, but he gave us a study to give us the stats on how many people actually do fulfill their New Year's resolutions. What about let's go straight to the drugs. Any advice on help with carpal tunnel while using GH?
Don't use GH.
Yeah. That was close.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I hate to say that.
If you get it, you get it. It's one of those things where some people get it. You can I'll take that back. You can try different kits because some people Seristems have been known to give them carpal tunnel. Some people take genotropins. I mean, sometimes the type of kit, Nordtropin, whatever. I think Seristems is the one most people I've known get carpal tunnel from. I don't know why, but you could switch up your kit, who you're getting it, who manufactures it. That's probably what you want to do.
I couldn't take Metatropes because it just blew me up so much. So, I mean, I think a lot of people react to things differently. And, it depends, too. I mean, is it – excuse me. Sorry about that. There's no avoiding that. I think sometimes people, when we come up with those sides, it can be dose-related, too, right? I mean, maybe it's
longevity of it more, I think, than anything.
Okay.
That I've seen. Yeah, if you take it for a long time. But I know, there's some people that just can't take certain kits for whatever reason. They get carpal tunnel or they get the fingers that won't bend and all that stuff.
But it also depends, too. I mean, how bad is the carpal tunnel? Is it just an annoyance, or is it to the point where, like, you can't work because you can't type because it's actually painful?
Yeah, middle finger locks out. That's not good either. Walking around like, Yeah. Yeah, my fingers used to lock. My pinky fingers, my ring finger used to lock on a lot of growth. So
I haven't had carpal tunnel, but I do remember on those Metatropes, I'd have to get up in the middle of the night, usually twice, and walk around because both my arms would be asleep from my shoulder all the way to my hand, and it hurt.
Yeah.
It wasn't from lying on them or anything. I had to get up to get the blood circulating so that it would go away so I could go back to sleep because it wouldn't allow me to sleep.
I do recall a buddy of mine, he used to take heat pads and put them on his arms. And he said it worked. I don't
Really?
know. I'm just telling you, the ones you throw in your microwave, little hot rock pads.
Yeah. But I bet he was sweating too when he was sleeping. That sucked.
And I didn't sleep with him, so I don't know. But,
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I got this. I was excited for this one because I thought we'd have some fun with it. Dennis James says the secret of getting huge is to cut gear use in half and double your food intake. He said that he ate between 8 to 10 really big meals a day trying to catch up with Ronnie. Question is, how can someone eat so much and not get fat? Is it purely about genetics and some people's inability to get fat?
I'm going with the answer I gave before the show. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, genetics.
And I completely agree. That's really the bottom line. Yeah, I said it before the show started. I'll say it again. No one watching this is Dennis James, and no one's chasing Ronnie Coleman. We don't have that type of genetic potential. So, I understand the point he's making by cutting the gear in half because a lot of times people just use too much shit, and they can cut it back, and their system may run a little bit more efficiently. But on the other hand, there's some people that maybe they need to double it. I'm not an advocate for running tons of shit, but there are other people that, you might want to double the gear and cut back the food, because if you're eating too much and it can't keep up with your metabolism, then it's not doing you any good anyway. And then you run the risk of insulin sensitivity issues / insulin resistance, that sort of thing. So, I think the very, very large majority of the people listening, minus the Nate Spears and people like that, they're not, we're not genetically superior, and it's not gonna, I have to be careful how I say this because I would never want to imply that anything comes easy for Nate. Nate works his fucking ass off, and Nate is just the name that came to mind because he, sometimes listens to the show, and I think we can all agree he's got pretty solid genetics relative to us.
Yeah, he's done so much in a short period of time, 7 years or so.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of Nate, I mean, you did see those presses at 315, 335, whatever the fuck, the overhead presses. I mean, for fuck's sake, Nate, leave some plates for everybody else in the gym. People have to squat, people have to do deads, and you're over there doing presses with the fucking weights that everybody else is squatting and doing deads with. That's just rude. That's just being rude, Nate.
I'd like to know what Dennis James calls cutting in half too.
I was thinking that because think about his time. Like, people back then, I think they were pushing the gear really. Like early 2000s, that was some serious gear use.
I mean, he could be calling cutting in half, going but down to 1.5 grams, 2 grams a week. I don't know. Just saying.
Yeah.
But even if that's the case, I mean, that's still a wise move, because a lot of times at those dosages, it is wasted gear, and people tend to err. As bodybuilders, we err on the side of more is better, because if we're taking more, we don't have to wonder if we're not taking enough. And that's not just with gear. That's with protein. That's with training. That's with cardio. It's with, the volume of your training, that type of shit. So, as bodybuilders, we tend to, more is better, and when in doubt, do more, no matter what it is. So I do like that component of it. It's the food thing that, and maybe it's just a point that he's making. You need to eat more food because the off season, when you're growing, a lot of times you don't have to put. I don't think so. I subscribe to the method of more gear in prep, less gear in the off season, because you do have the calorie or the caloric surplus, and you can grow. People, I won't go so far as to say that food is as anabolic as gear, because that's not. I don't believe that's true, but I understand when people say that, the point that they're trying to make, and that is food is far more anabolic than most people think it is.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't give it enough credit, because when you're in a surplus, you don't need a lot of gear. You just don't need a ton of it. When you're dieting, when you're trying to get lean, more gear is beneficial, because it's going to help you to hang on to muscle tissue. When you're running on that stuff, you could have just muted your microphone. We have the same.
I tried to.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, and they complain about me spitting.
Yeah,
blow
exactly.
your nose all over.
And he didn't do it once. He did it twice. He did it 20 minutes ago.
I can't help but blow my nose. I've been trying to put the microphone on mute every time. It's either that or I just sit here and sniffle the whole time. People don't want to hear that.
It's okay.
I can't help it if I've got allergies.
We still love you.
I think though, if we really look at it, cutting gear in half does not in itself make you bigger. Take less gear to grow more. Maybe you can get away with less, but I don't think the answer is cut the gear in half. That's for sure.
I'm going to guess his reasoning behind that was people just take too much gear.
Yeah. But you're right. Directly, you're not going to cut your gear and then be like, oh my God, all of a sudden I'm growing. I agree with that.
Yeah. What else do we got here? Best time of day to take GH in the off season. Would it still be worth using only on training days on bodybuilders for bodybuilders on a budget?
2 IUs every other day.
That's all you need, huh?
Yep. Maybe 3. Whatever divides your vial the best mathematical solution.
Are you still doing every other day, Skip?
No.
I'm not either. I gotta be honest.
And I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I still go with 5 days, but I do it's a 2 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off. Okay. It's just
you just have to design your own way.
Is it
based I'll tell you what, I don't do the every other day because I just honestly don't feel like it's enough. It may be, but I don't feel like it is. So because I did try it. Yeah, well, and like I said, I don't have the blood work to prove that it's any better as far as blood levels or anything like that. But that's just something that's what I feel comfortable with, and I feel like that's better. The first couple weeks of going back on, I'll go every day. Just kind of to
get your IGF levels up.
Just get everything going. How do I judge them? Or
do you take them like on non-training days, or you just go 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off?
Yeah, I don't think it really matters with the training day versus non-training day.
Consistency is what matters.
Yeah, exactly. Now, for me, it does so happen that my Wednesdays that I don't dose, I don't train typically. If I'm on a regular schedule, holidays and stuff are an exception. And then I don't dose it on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I don't train on those 2 days, but I do dose it on Sunday, and I don't train on Sunday, and that's my load day. So, I don't want to go because I contemplate this 2 on. I train 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off. So I train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I thought about just taking it on my training days, not because I thought it'd be more effective on my training days, but because it's easier to remember to be consistent.
Yeah.
With your routine. So then what I did was I'm like, I don't want to be off for 2 days straight. So I'm just going to make my 2 days that I'm off Wednesdays and Saturdays. And that's what I've stuck with. And I'm pretty black and white. I'm a pretty structured guy. So I stick with that. Even if my training changes and stuff, that way I know when I'm dosing it.
Can you tell the difference in your recovery when you're using growth versus not using it?
I'll tell you what I notice more than anything, because I don't notice much of a difference with recovery. It might be there, but I don't think it's enough that it's obvious. What I do notice is I will get leaner. That's the thing that I notice the most. I get leaner. It usually takes 2-3 months for me to see, and I just all of a sudden I'm not, saying that at that point I get shredded and it's like doing cardio or, Clen and T3, drinking it by the bottle. I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is that's the obvious sign for me that I notice. And I go, oh, shit's working. Yeah. You
probably have very limited natural GH output. So,
and I don't doubt that. I mean, at 50, I can't imagine that my levels would be all that high. I agree with that.
You could have some, but it's probably pretty low.
Yeah, I noticed that though at right around that 2 to 3. I'd say probably at about 8 weeks, give or take, a week or so. But right around 8 weeks, I typically notice. And you talk about the fullness and the 3D and stuff. That's a little bit more subjective and stuff. I do feel fuller on it, but it's not something like I get to walk around and feel like I'm pumped all the time and things like that. But I notice the movement.
I can tell in my clothes because like last year, I'd leave the country for a few weeks at a time visiting Victoria or traveling, and so I'd stop growth and I could tell that even if I was just going to her house, diet was the same, still training and all that. That like my clothes would start feeling looser, and then I'd go home, and then a week later back I'd be blowing right back up. I can't remember who it was. I think I can't remember what show it was on, but it was somebody who had talked to Luke Sando about it, who said he didn't really feel like growth did a lot other than give him like more of an inflated look. It might have been even Dave Crossland that talked to him about it. And so that he liked it because he is in the public eye. And that way he could always have that, like, you know, more heavily inflated look, which obviously for a pro bodybuilder it would be, you know, more marketable to look that way all the time, you know?
Now, I'm not saying that his assessment wasn't accurate, but you do have to wonder too about the placebo effect, because when we're on, we always feel like, you know, it's like you miss one meal and you're late for a meal for 2 hours, hour and a half, and you're like, oh, I'm flat again. It's like, come on.
I can tell.
Like the day after your last pin, you're like, oh, I'm not as strong.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell in how my clothes fit when if I'll go through a phase where I'm like, oh, yeah, shit, I didn't order any bacteriostatic water or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm off of it for a couple of weeks or whatever. And then I forget. I'll go through phases where like I just forget to take it. And then I can tell it's like, oh, shit, I need to get back on that.
Yeah, I have to leave myself like serious reminders. I have to really get in a groove because I'll forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, I don't ever forget to take my gear. Fuck you guys. I'll forget to train before that.
What else do we have here? Another growth hormone question. Why is it recommended that GH needs to be taken for an extended period to be effective? It has such a short half-life, and it's not building up the way that long estered oils would. So why is it necessary to run length versus shorter bursts? This is Matt Marshall.
Because you're maintaining your IGF levels elevated for a long period of time.
But why is that important?
Well, IGF is, I mean, you know, you got protein synthesis, recovery. You know, if you take, so I remember doing some studies where this is where I got the one, you know, every other day.
Yeah.
To where run it for, I think there was a couple like 2-month periods every day and then come off of it. It would take like 3 or 4 weeks for about 3 weeks well, I'm trying to think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to your IGF levels started dropping. But once they started dropping, they dropped really fast. So by sustaining that every other day, I'll make context too. I'd start out with like 7 or 10 days in a row every day and then go to the every other day. And usually you could get your IGF levels up to where not completely all the way up, but pretty close, probably 80%. And then on the every other day, it'll build up over the next week or two, and then they'll kind of just peak. You know, they'll kind of stay at one certain level for extended periods of time. You know, of course, you know, it helps your metabolism and all that. So, you know, it's a great drug. But I think it's overused too. I think using excessive amounts of it's not worth it. You know,
I have to wonder with him posing the question the way he did. I wonder if he's asking about. God, I got to be able to explain this right. My brain is a little scattered, but here's an example. I have said numerous times, not only to my clients, but on this podcast and in conversation stuff for years, that I recommend that people, if you're going to take growth, that you should take it for a minimum of 6 months, especially if you are just using it for the first time. And the reason that I recommend that longer length of time is because if you're going to invest the money, you need to take it long enough to be able to accurately evaluate whether it works or it doesn't. And I think it's harder to evaluate whether you feel that it's working or it doesn't, because the effects are relatively subtle compared to steroids or a gear cycle. Okay. So the longer you take it, and I think a lot of people recommend, they may not recommend 6 months, but typically you'll hear recommendations. I know I've heard them, you know, of at least 3 months or 4 months or 5 months. Yeah. So if you get underneath that time period, I think it's more difficult to evaluate how effective it is and how well it works for you.
Versus, slow impact compound. It keeps on giving, but it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, versus it being less effective. I agree with you as far as the IGF levels and things like that, the climbing IGF levels and the falling IGF levels when you stop it. So you don't want to run it too short, because then you're just in a period of where they're either climbing and they haven't reached, 100% blood levels, or they're not maxed out. And then you're turning around and you're coming back down, they're declining and they're falling off a cliff quite rapidly when you stop taking it. So if you take it longer, those two things happen. Your IGF levels remain constant for a longer period of time, like S2H was saying, but you also can evaluate better because you've taken it longer to see if there is, or to be able to evaluate what that progress is and if you see a difference or not.
Yeah. If you're not patient, GH is probably not for you.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I hate to say this because it's a lot more cost effective than it used to be, but it still can dig into your pocketbook so much more than regular gear that if you don't have the money, it's going back to that question that the guy asked a few questions ago about GH and, trying to stretch your money out. So sometimes in situations like that, I'd say, look, if you feel like you got to stretch it, just, don't use it.
Yeah.
Build up some funds, start putting, a few bucks aside for your GH fund or whatever you want, so that you can run it the way you want to run it. Because here's the thing, again, coming back to, if you don't run it enough of it, or you don't run it consistently enough, or it's not a high enough dose, you're not really going to know if you respond well to it either. So at least that first go round really should be very consistent. I don't think you should be too low on your dosage for the first run, so that you know whether it's working. You get a good idea of whether it works or not, because after that 6 months, if you don't feel that it works that well, then save your fucking money. Buy more gear, buy more Team Skip protein, buy more stuff from Elite FTS, of which I don't have a discount code. I'm gonna have to talk to them about that. I gotta talk to Dave.
Discount code?
I gotta get a discount code, man. I gotta get a discount code. Dave, Skip, come on, bro.
And you know what, too? I feel like depending on what you want it for me, at this point, it's more of a longevity thing. I do feel that I get added recovery from it. And I always want added recovery. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want added recovery for a short period of time. I want like the enhanced collagen synthesis. I want to be able to continue keeping my joints healthy. I take collagen on a regular basis now, and that's giving me the materials to then be able to let the GH, it's like the building blocks for the GH to then help to improve all my connective tissues. So
right.
I don't know anything about it, how long it would take, but I feel like restoring connective tissue is probably a long-term thing, that you're not going to get that out of it in the short term. Rejuvenation, I think, is a long-term thing, like I think about, if you want your skin to look better, and I've seen improvements in people's skin with growth hormone. It's not something it's not like a D-ball where like you take it for 4 weeks and then you get that. And so I'd have to think that it would be similar for anything, including like fat loss and muscle growth, that it's not going to be like a cleanse where you can take it for a few weeks and get a blast out of it, that you're going to need to run it for a long, and it's made sense to me, I guess.
I think age matters too. So if I had 2 people and one was 22 and 42,
sure,
they said, should I take long-term growth? I'd probably tell the one at 22, nah, don't worry about it.
Right.
Spend your money on something else.
No,
so as you get older, its effects are more pronounced.
When I used it when I was younger, I said numerous times, like, why do I spend my money on this? I swear to God, I'm not getting anything out of this. And then once I got over 40, I was like, God damn, I think this is really fucking working. Another way to tell too, and you guys tell me if you agree with this, but I do, I do think that this is a good way to measure whether your growth is working. But all of a sudden, you got to clip your fingernails more often because them motherfuckers are growing like crazy.
Yep.
Hair gets
the growth. The growth is working. Yeah, I got 5 hairs after a cycle instead of 3. Look like Charlie Brown.
Silky hair.
Yeah, I use the fingernails as a big judgment. When I have to start clipping them on a more regular basis, then I know, at least that's improving. So
yeah,
I'll tell you what. The first time I used IGF, I've never had this since, but the first time I used IGF, like all the pores on my face just like disappeared. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Yeah. Yeah, like any pore, like you have irregular pores. Some of them are better than others. Some of them are bigger than others. Like all the pores just retracted, and my skin looked like crazy perfect. And that happened within like a week. It was pretty weird, man. It was weird. I remember I got really sick. I ended up like catching the flu while I was running that, and my girlfriend was like, "It doesn't make sense because." She could tell I was sick, but she was like, it's almost like you're faking, because you're walking around, you're going in the bathroom throwing up, but then you come out and you have this like beautiful, healthy glow the whole time. Like she's like, you don't look sick at all right now.
Maybe you were just pregnant. They could. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You're getting sick. You come out with a glow.
That's another. I don't want to talk about that on the show, guys. In the podcast, we got a few in the thread here. Let me see if I can bring any of these. What are your thoughts on cardio pre-workout? Is it such a big deal compared to post-workout?
Huge. Yeah, it's huge. Basically, don't do your cardio before you weight train. It's a fuel issue. Now, if you're just doing it, a few minutes to get warm and get blood going because you train in a, pole barn it's in the middle of January in North Dakota. God damn, does it get cold in North Dakota? I got stories there, but I'll leave that out for now. Anyway, if you're doing it for fat burning purposes and that sort of thing, you don't do it before because the fuel, basically your anaerobic threshold is going to take longer to get to your anaerobic threshold. And what that is in layman's terms is, when you start cardio and your legs are just on fire and they're getting pumped and you're like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden it disappears. When it disappears and you feel like you can do cardio for an hour, but you really don't want to because cardio sucks and cardio is boring, that's the anaerobic threshold. You've crossed over to the other side. So you will get to that anaerobic, I said anabolic, Freudian there, anaerobic threshold quicker if you do it post-workout, because when you weight train, your fuel source or primary fuel source is glycogen. Yeah. So if you deplete glycogen stores or you have glycogen stores more depleted, it's going to be quicker to get to that anaerobic threshold. And when you get to that, you're using oxygen and essentially body fat as a fuel source versus glycogen. You don't want to use any more glycogen during cardio than you need to. That's why fasted cardio, I was going to say fasted cardio is superior. I believe fasted cardio is superior. I know that there are some trainers out there who would love to argue that till we're blue in the face because of study after study after study. It doesn't show anything different. I feel that it is different because I've seen thousands of clients and myself over the years that respond better to fasted cardio, in my opinion. So don't do it before, do it after. If you're going to do it before, then do it fasted in the morning and train at night. Far more efficient process that way. It's not that you're not going to burn calories. You're going to burn calories no matter when you do cardio. It's just not as efficient of a process.
I have the S2H method, which is if there's hot chicks on the treadmills when you get there, do your cardio first. If not, do it after when they're there. Dude, I used to do my cardio first all the time because if I didn't, I wouldn't do it.
Well, I think it got you married.
But I would say this, my cardio was not exactly setting the world on fire. So it wasn't anything too high impact.
Right.
I thought I saw a study at some point where they said whatever you give preference to do first, you'll get more out of that, is what the study ended up saying. So if you do cardio first, then you get more cardio benefit. If you do training first, then you'll get more training benefit. Which, at the end of the day,
define benefit. I don't. From a body fat
like actually doing it.
No, but I think people do cardio, at least listeners, primarily just for body fat. I mean, we're not doing it to increase our health. That's just a side effect. We're not doing it to increase our oxygen uptake or VO2 max. That's just a side effect. We're doing it to lose body fat or to stay leaner. So I don't know. I mean, half of what you don't agree with that?
To get out of the house.
Well, I know, but you're the exception to the rule on damn near everything we talk about. I think you know that.
I just live a real life.
Unlike Skip and I and everybody who listens to this show.
Right, exactly.
No, there's somebody out there that agrees with me like, yeah, dude, I go walk because I got to get the hell out of the house. Somebody out there agrees with me. One person.
All right. How about Proviron? Thoughts on Proviron? Dosage? Is it worth trying out? Digging the shades, Skip.
Thank you very much. Is that James? I don't see. These are my sunglasses, not my reading glasses, so I'm squinting to see.
That's right. We had other comments for you, Skip, about you look Jamaican, stuff like. I didn't even put those up because I knew you.
Oh, okay. So I can't see them all. I'm only reading the ones you put up. All right, fair enough. All right. What was it? Proviron?
Yeah.
Increase your testosterone. Is it worth
lowers your SHBG. or it binds to it in the blood. So it frees up more testosterone.
There you go. Yep. So it's always good. Then it becomes a cost issue. How expensive is it? How long are you going to take it? What dose are you going to take it in? Basically, see, I was going to go that too. Let me ask you this, S2H. I believe there's really essentially zero side effects to it. You could take it long term, right?
Yeah, I used to love that stuff. I'd say just in general, be careful you get real Proviron. Another one that probably comes around that's not always what it is, but
really,
Proviron works good. I mean, if you get labs and you check your SHBG and start taking it and get them again, you'll notice they drop way down. Your free tests will come up some. I mean, it's kind of like, it's not going to make. I don't think it's going to make you. It's one of those small pieces of the pie. It's not a huge one.
Yeah,
it can give you, that extra 5% or whatever.
Sorry, I wasn't laughing at you. It's so different being out here in the main room since we moved. The cats open doors and shit when no one's here, and I hear the door open, and it's fucking and I can see it opening, but I can't see the cat opening it, so it's just kind of creepy, and I have to laugh. I wasn't laughing at you, at least this time.
No, I'm just hoping you get robbed while we're on camera. some guy comes around with a 12 gauge behind you. You jump.
Well, he's gonna have to get me pretty quick because I got my wife's Kimber right here.
Oh my!
He hit it in his hand. He was ready. He was like, he heard the door.
He was ready.
I'm not gonna shoot him. I'm gonna hit him with it, Scott. God, we go over this all the time. I'm not violent like that. I don't want to. I can't do that. I can't. I'll
a white Bob Marley there.
Exactly. I'll pistol whip him. All right. Proviron, yes.
Go for it, Proviron.
Since S2H was in the pro hormone scene, what's the most underrated or hidden gem? Were a lot of them the same compound, just dosed differently with a different name on the bottle? I heard Blackstone Labs allegedly did this.
So I can only speak for one company, and I know their stuff was not. It was what it said it was. I'd say probably a hidden gem. I don't know. Probably the best one was M-Sten, which is methylstenbolone.
Yeah.
Which is made by Iron Mag at the time. Was probably the best one I liked because it gave you good results, but you didn't get a lot of sides. The one Andro was okay. I guess it was. I wouldn't call it a hidden gem, but it probably did more than people thought. And no, Blackstone had the same methylsten, just with a different name. So it was methylstenbolone because it was the same one, just a different label.
What did you get from that one? I never took it.
M-Sten would be like, let's say, D-ball meets Anavar.
Huh. I like that.
Maybe. So kind of dry, not too watery. Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, it gets pretty vascular. I mean, it was pretty decent. 30 days was enough. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I didn't have any liver problems with it, but I'm sure somebody was pissing brown after a while with it. But I would say it was one of the ones that actually you knew you were taking it. It wasn't D-ball level. Just say D-ball dropped 25% off.
Like what kind of gains would somebody get off?
I gained 20 pounds in a month. Yeah.
Okay.
Solid muscle.
Every ounce of it, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't weigh myself much, but I'd say I probably put on in 30 days. I mean, I was taking other stuff too, so it's. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's like a low dose D-ball feeling. So if you take D-ball, you gain a little water, you get a little fuller, strength, help with strength a little. I mean, some of the other ones, the SDs and the what was that other one? Methyl 1 testosterone. Holy shit, man! I'd have had a heart attack if I took that stuff for more than 2 days.
Yeah,
you had to jack your blood pressure up. Some of the stuff was pretty strong, but the one Andro, some people liked it. I thought it was a little bit weak. You know what? I'm going to give you a correlation. It's kind of like taking a Gamma test and SARMs with it. I mean, what the hell are you going to get from the SARM? You're not going to know it's there. So if you're already taking a bunch of gear, some of them aren't going to do much for you. Yeah. But
I heard if you're already hitting a lot of home runs and you take it, the very next year you'll be in a race with Sammy Sosa and you'll be battling for the home run
methylstenbolone.
Just what I heard. I'm saying that's what I heard.
I didn't really get into the hormones that much. I think I tried a couple of them, but You know who that was? That was Omar Hurtada. He listened to all the podcasts since back in the day.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric worked for the same company.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, they made some good products, but that didn't end well once they all got banned.
Yeah, I can imagine that. When looking at my TRT blood work and trying to figure out if I'm getting the most out of my dosage, what are the key markers to look at? Total test, free test, and SHBG.
Free.
There you go. We're
Free.
done. Next question.
Free
It all
tests.
comes down to free. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep,
you can tell
free test is
SHBG
king.
levels by free. Yeah, exactly. And total testosterone versus free testosterone. I don't even know why people pay, even doctors pay as much attention to free testosterone level or to total testosterone levels versus free. Free is really all that matters.
So if you look at blood work, full panel, hormone panel, I could tell you, because I've looked at a lot of them, if you blacked out the free testosterone and you showed me the estradiol, the total, the SHBG, I could almost tell you what your free testosterone is based on where those are all at.
Yep.
Because, it's the parking lot theory. You only got so many spaces, and if everything else is taking it up, you don't have the free testosterone or it's not converting. You see people with, 1,500 NGDL total tests, and then they have a 200 free test. Well, that's not very good. You have a poor ratio. So you got to figure out, why is that ratio poor? Generally, it's estradiol is high, but SHBG can play in that too. So you kind of have to look at everything.
And if your free testosterone isn't that high, what do you throw in?
Proviron.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, I have a lab where I had it was like a 998 total. I was taking Proviron. I think my free was like 620. That's like pretty kick-ass.
That's pretty good ratio. That's not too bad. Yeah.
That's like brutal. I was like, holy shit, are these my labs?
How about any unique ways to make deloads less boring? I absolutely hate deloading. So I'm wondering if you all have some fun ideas that might mitigate some of the accumulated fatigue without wanting to tear my hair out.
Don't do it.
Don't do
deload.
It.
Yeah,
don't pull your hair out. No, one thing I try to do with deloads, because I think everybody at their core hates them. You always hate them when things are going well, and you know that you need to take your deloads proactively. Yeah. And you're going to come back stronger, but you just don't want to. You don't want to downshift. Yeah, exactly. Lose your gains. But one of the things that I like to do is I'll go in and I'll do different exercises. I'll play around with stuff. I'll experiment a little bit. I'll use a machine that I haven't used before. And damn it, sometimes coming out of a load doing that, I go, you know what? I've never used that machine. I thought it would suck. It actually felt pretty good. I'm gonna take that into this next blast and see what happens. It's happened before, and it's happened a few times. So try out different shit that you otherwise don't do, or just switch to what I call fluff, and that's just cable shit, stretch and squeeze, things that you don't normally do. And it'll give you a little bit of a different pump. It'll give you a little bit of a fresh psychological, thing going, because you're not doing the same boring stuff. A lot of times when people deload with the same exercises they're always using, I would think that would be pretty boring. And why? You might as well mix it up a little bit, because you're not in the gym that week to progress anyway. You're there to basically get a pump and get the hell out of there without doing too much damage, and damage in the sense of stressing your CNS and causing. You want to increase your recovery and let your body catch up during that time. So play around with some shit. Play around with some fluff.
I like that.
Try exercises that you're not normally, doing, and you might come out of that week with an exercise that you thought, you know what, I would have never given that a shot otherwise.
I like that. That's like a mindset change. That's like just how you're looking at it, because you don't give yourself that freedom when you're in there and you're like, okay, I gotta, when you're really focused, you don't have that you don't have that fun. I guess that's what it is. You can't have that fun. So
I always tell people too, talk to people more, shoot the shit a little bit in between sets, of course, not while you're while you're training, but even then you're in there to deload. You're in there to get a pump. So, have a little bit of fun, socialize a little bit, change it up a little bit, and then come back in the next week and ready to bang. One cool thing that a deload does do is about halfway through, you want to rip the shit out of that gym, but you have to wait until the next week. And by the time you wait and you come in, you should be ripping that gym apart. If you don't come in the next week after a deload, you didn't deload enough, or you took it reactively. Yeah. You took the deload reactively and your body is still so beat up that it didn't catch up, and your recovery hasn't improved enough in that week, where you probably still need more time to deload. That's another, topic altogether, I guess.
Yeah, I have one for you guys. This is something that a new client asked me, and I said, hey, we're recording Blood, Sweat, and Gear. We mentioned this one time before. We talked about this one time before, but I figured it'd be something we could refresh on. What makes a good client? If somebody wants to hire a coach, what are the things that they can do to be a good client? I told them the number one thing was just good communication. Letting me know where he's at. Because I'll have people that just send pictures and send a weight, and they don't say anything. And then I'm like, okay. So now I have to ask you a bunch of stuff. On the other hand, I've also had people where, I remember I was working with this lady one time, and she was running Clen. She had just started the Clen, and I said, well, how's the Clen going? We had to have a phone conversation. She was local, and we'd have to talk every time she checked in. And
she was local or loco?
Both.
Local.
Okay. All right.
She was like, my point is going to be, like, sometimes if people get really in depth, you have to then, as the coach, weed through, like, well, what are the important facts I need? But I remember this one time I was like, so how's the Clen going? Do you feel anything different, any kind of like anxiety, anything like that from it? She's like, well, my pool used to make a noise, and these kids came over and they fucked with it like a year ago. Now, I carry a concealed weapon, so I had every right to go in my backyard with my gun when I heard people back there. And whatever they did, it's made this noise ever since then. And my neighbors have been complaining, and they actually called the city. And now I have to turn my pool off until I get it fixed, because I've had noise complaints about the pool. So I've had a lot harder time, feeling comfortable. I have had more anxiety this week.
That's called a clenfession. I don't know if you're not familiar with the term, I guess. Yeah. Communication, I think, I was going to say execution. But then you said communication. I thought, you know what? That probably is more. Here's the thing with communication and how I approach it with my clients too is I do feel that the more information I can get, the better, because if I don't need it, I can sift through it or I could set it to the side. Yeah. When I don't get something that the client may not think is significant or important enough, then it's like you find out 2 weeks later and you're like, damn, you didn't tell me. Why didn't you tell? I just didn't think it was important. So the communication component is huge because, of course, a lot of the changes that you're going to make are going to be based almost entirely on their feedback. I mean, their pictures, how they're feeling, answering the questions and getting the information out of them that you need to be able to assess and analyze and see if there are changes and what changes need to be made. Execution, though, is probably a very close second. I mean, you could almost go without you could go without added communication or over communication if you have execution. There are those people, and it doesn't happen very often. There are those people that can execute, but they're not very talkative. They're not going to give you a bunch of information. They're just going to do exactly what you tell them to do by the book. They're not going to fucking complain. They're not going to tell you, they're not going to get into their personal business. They're not going to chit chat with you or anything. And it's funny because I don't know if you guys feel this way or not. I do sometimes. When that doesn't happen and you don't get that rapport, I know myself, I question, I'm like, God, am I being cold? Do they take me as being standoffish? Are we communicating enough? But there are just some people who are like that. They just don't care about that. They just care about the results and the execution, and they have other things to do in their day, and their time is limited, and it is what it is. So I would say communication and execution. I can't think of anything else unless you have something else, S2H? Throw it in there. I might agree with you.
I think the best thing to do is right from the start, is part of communication is get the expectation. So if the coach doesn't give you an expectation of what he needs information wise, then ask him, what do you want me to send to you?
Yeah.
If they don't send you a questionnaire, which I do, I mean, most people do, but you don't know what to send them, say, what do you want me to send you every week? Picture, front, back, whatever, weight, just tell me what, and then your expectations set, and then you don't have to worry too much about it.
Yeah. It would be pretty odd though. I mean, if you're a trainer and you don't set those expectations of, what the feedback is and the information you need, you probably should be questioning yourself as a trainer.
Well, I think people set they don't set it firm enough though. And then
I agree.
Because, if someone sends me a 6-paragraph email, probably it would better all be in the first 2 paragraphs because I probably ain't going to make it past that.
See, now I'm a little different. And this is where trainers can be different sometimes too. And that's
why you set the expectation.
Yeah. And I like to know as much as I can I tell you what, I've had clients tell me if you guys have had this before, but they'll say something like, well, this is what's going on. I wanted to tell you, but you probably don't care because you got a lot of clients or whatever. If something is going on in their personal life, I'm not going to pry, but if you're going to tell me, that's added information for me to empathize with your situation, whether you have, someone is sick, especially this last year, you have lost someone close to you, you've lost a pet, you're having relationship issues. Those are things I think, and everybody's different as trainers, and I get that and I respect that. But for me, I want to know those things if they're willing to share them, because then I can understand if things aren't the way they're supposed to be, or they're off for 3 or 4 days, or they're not entirely there. You can understand and you can know why, versus, tell them, look, what the fuck? I mean, what's going on? And not knowing what that is when it could be something just horrible that they're having to deal with. So, and I'm not saying that you don't care. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is I have a lot of communication with my clients on almost a daily basis, where sometimes it can be a fucking page and a half, of what's going on. And I honestly, I don't mind it unless they're bitching me out for something.
even like basic stuff. I one guy I'm thinking of, every month he has to take 1 week to work a night shift. And now that I know this, it's like, okay, we know that you're going to look like shit for a week. Like, why are things, if not, then I'm asking myself, like, well, why are things looking different now? Like, why are you holding a bunch of fluid and things just, aren't popping? Like, we can kind of preemptively plan for that now, or at least I know to be aware, like, oh, this is why things look different. I totally agree. It's important to know that stuff.
I'm talking though more about stuff like, height, weight, all that comes in, information, and all of a sudden paragraph 3 comes, hey, my friend I'm working out with wants to know if he should do, and you start going way down, my girl wants to do, the shakedown for information stuff, it's not relevant. Stay relevant to you and the plan and the coach. Don't wander off in like these wild, if you're having a divorce or you're having like big problems, I want to know that, but I don't want to know that why your workout buddy can't bench 225 and what he should do.
Let me throw one more thing in there. Let me see if you guys agree. I bet you will. How about this one? My buddy, not my buddy, I guess client or buddy. I'm helping so-and-so, my buddy, with a show, but I really don't know how to do diuretics or something. I'm just helping him out. I don't have a business or anything like that. I'm not making any money. I wonder what your protocol. No, bitch, I am
10
not.
Lasix.
Number one, they're not fucking paying me. And number two, they're not paying me. They're not a client.
That you get hit up on the last day that the plan ends. Hey, what should I do for the next year?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, exactly. Got any advice for the next 6 months until I can work with you again? Yeah, save your money, bro. No, that's cold. But it was funny.
All right, I think we had one more over here. Let's see, what was it? I like this one. Advantages, disadvantages to training at night on a regular day shift. Any ways to make it more optimal? Ooh, I got one.
I always train at night.
So why is training at night not optimal? I guess I don't
How about
understand.
this? I got one for you. That if you train at night, well, you can. Never mind. It wasn't a good one. I was
got
trying
more
to
food in
something.
you.
Well, you do have more food in you. You don't have more post-workout window of time. There is that.
What do you mean?
Well, I personally
stay
like.
Up.
eat well. If you have to go to work the next morning and you have to get right to bed, I've had it where it can be a little bit of a cramp in style where it's like you train and then you have to eat and then go straight to bed. I personally, I like to be able to get a few meals in me, train, and get a few more meals in me. Obviously, not everybody has that. Not everybody has that.
Some of us have real jobs, so we can't do that.
Right.
So, yeah, I can't relate. Neither can Scott. But yeah, I'm the same way. I usually do 3 and 3 or 4 and 3. I'm the same way. I thought you were going. The reason I questioned you was I thought you were maybe going down the path of, well, you can't take in, simple carbs post workout because it's right before bed. And then I thought about it, and I'm like,
you can't have carbohydrates at night.
Like I know.
Well, Skip, because you can't eat carbs after 6 p.m.
Right, exactly. But it was funny that I thought that. I went, what the fuck? Scott would never think that. Why would I think he was going to think that? But a lot of people do. Well, maybe not a lot, but there is that percentage that they still have that archaic mentality, whether they read it on the boards or something, because it used to be a big thing on the boards, but it's just different. So if anybody's wondering what I mean, it's different if you train at night. You have a need for those carbs, whether it's before bedtime or not, because you just train. Those carbs are going to restore glycogen. They're not going to be stored as body fat. Now, if you're eating a bunch of simple carbs, like rice checks or some shit like that, right before you go to bed, yeah, exactly, then there's not much use for that. And your body's going to store it one of two ways: glycogen or body fat. So it is what it is.
That's all we got, guys. That's the end of the show. I mean, technically, it's not the end of the show. The best stuff is still going to happen, but that's the end of our questions.
That's the end. That's all there is.
What are you doing with training, Skip? What's going on with that? I saw you pressing. What were you doing? You were doing the pendulum squat.
Yeah, I'm about 6 weeks back into my leg training, and I'm just freaking loving it because I can do everything 100%. I'm trying to be smart about it. My body wants to grow. The poundages want to go up, but I'm trying to be careful and focus more on intensity than just piling the weights on. But it does feel pretty good to get that full blown, and especially through my glutes and my hamstrings, because I was still able to train my legs with like sissy squats and leg extensions. So I had a little bit of a quad pump the whole time, even when I was recovering from my hip injury, but not through the glutes. So now when I get a glute pump, I'm like, oh yeah.
So it's like 100% now?
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, it's supposed to be. It better be. Yeah, no, it feels great. So even just to get back in, I'm doing a lot more lunge work, which is funny too, because we were talking about the deload and going into the deload and trying to maybe find an exercise that you might go, oh, I didn't think about doing this, and you had an opportunity to do it. I did the same thing when I was injured, and I started playing around with sissy squats, and I'm like, God damn, I got to take this exercise into my off season, because it just destroys your quads. So what I do is I replace leg extensions with sissy squats, probably 2 out of 3 sessions. And man, it just rips. I can already see my rectus femoris, coming out more than it ever did with leg extensions. So, I'm also doing more glute work than I ever did before. I'm doing a lot more lunges, just trying to get more direct glute work. Now, part of that is for the strength and stabilization, of my glutes and things like that. But I also thought to myself, never done a whole lot of lunging in my, and I'm thinking, well, I want my legs to grow. Yeah, maybe I should revisit this. So it's funny too, because when you're off with an injury, you have a lot of downtime and you have a lot of time to think instead of running and chasing, everything you got to do in a day. It gives you more downtime to think about your training and what you're going to do when you come back. And I think that in the end it's one of the things in my coach log that I said out of 2020, it was one of the 5 positive things that I took away from 2020. Yes, it was an injury, which was a big negative. And yet I was still able to pull something out of that was positive that I could take into 2021. And I think it'll help. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but it just feels really good to be back in bomb legs again. Shit, man.
Do you feel like you would consider competing in 2021?
You know what? If I did, or 2021 or 22 or 23, and I mean no disrespect by saying this, I wouldn't even tell you guys, let alone listeners. This last year was very, very difficult. Yeah. I've had problems in the past, but this one was really hard because I didn't directly cause it. I drove myself into the ground a couple years ago. That was my own doing. It was just kind of bad decision making. The more is better type thing. When in doubt, work harder. I didn't do anything this time, and every time you have to explain to somebody what happened and why you weren't able to finish, it's just like another knife in the gut or a kick in the balls. And I won't ever do that again. I'll either show up on stage and then talk about it, or I just won't get back on stage.
Okay. Yeah.
Like we're not going to know if you're prepping.
I'm sure
That's
that I
a
would
good
get
point.
questions. My face would start to come in and I'll get lean as shit and that sort of thing. But it's incredibly unlikely that it would be this year. Not only just because of what happened last year, but I need my legs to grow. I want to bring my legs up. And I still believe that that shows are going to be up in the air until at least July, maybe even into late summer, at least.
Yeah.
So it's not on my radar at all right now. Could something change? I guess it could, but I really want to get into this leg training and, enjoy not being, I don't want to say hungry all the time, but stringy and face sunk in and everything else, and enjoy a pump and in training, normal, and just killing my legs, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I've been thinking about what I want to do, and I'm thinking, because I hadn't competed since 2017, the end of it, November was the last one. And then I didn't compete for 2018, but I didn't try to grow either. I just focused on podcasting stuff, focused on other clients, and had a lot of really good success that year too. 2019, kind of same thing. Plus I had the whole divorce thing all went down and all that.
Right.
2020, I started putting on size again, and I don't feel like I'm done with that. I don't want to compete again unless I can actually get on stage and look different. So
But you're not running out of years like I am, seriously. And I know that sounds
like I am. I feel like I am,
I know I've still got some in me, but I don't know how many. So even just this COVID thing makes me nervous, because at least without COVID, I can make that decision myself. With COVID, it makes it a little bit more difficult. I feel a little cheated, to be honest with you. I know that sounds kind of
I feel that way too. I feel cheated. I feel like I was cheated out of a year, really.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I agree. And outside of bodybuilding, just completely remove bodybuilding. I think a lot of people should feel cheated, not be cheated, but should feel cheated, because it was such a limiting year. You can't even go see your goddamn family members when they're in the hospital. You can't go to a funeral because you can't have a funeral service. And I'm not arguing whether we should be able to or shouldn't be able to for lives or anything else. I don't want to get into that.
Right.
But we should all feel cheated because we're missing out on quality of life until this shit goes back to normal, if and when really it ever does.
I didn't feel cheated.
You live in Texas.
You don't do anything, dude. you sit in your chair, you go to your job.
You weren't dating somebody that lived in another country.
Pretty good.
You train at home though, right?
No, I'm never home.
I know, but I thought you worked out at home. No.
Oh, I have a gym here.
Well, you got to remember though, he didn't work out for most of the year.
Define working out. That's what you need to define. I've got some 25-pound dumbbells, and I've got.
You do. He's been doing curls for an hour and a half.
I got some. I go for a 4-mile walk every night.
That's not training. That's not.
I'll still kick your ass.
I'm not saying you won't kick my ass. You probably would kick my ass. And if you didn't, or by some chance you couldn't, you'd be able to take me out with 2 on my chest and 1 on my head. I don't question that. And then be able to hide my body so that nobody could find my body. I get that. But I'm saying
I do have some stuff to do this year, though, that COVID will not impede fully, but it impeded. There was something I wanted to do this year that I've done in the past, but I wasn't able to because it was too spread out with the virus shit. So,
but you were still crammed in your house with your wife and your kids and stuff. And I'm not saying that's bad, but you still had to feel the stress outside of that. Maybe
I'm gone probably 60, 70 hours a week. I'm not home.
Okay, well, then I'll go on record and say you're the only person in the country that has not been impacted in 2020, negatively impacted in 2020. Then. And if you haven't been impacted, you can send your stimulus check to me. I'll text you my.
I didn't get one, bro.
Yeah. So anyway, though, I'm considering I'm thinking about it now. 2022, I think spring of 2022 is when I'll probably get on stage.
That's cool.
Next. I just don't see myself being done with growing for a while.
You should let me coach you.
I'm having too much fun, I really am.
You'd be all ripped.
Yeah, I'm having too much fun growing muscle right now, and
I don't blame you. And if that's the case, ride it, because your body won't always want to grow. Tell my clients that all the time. Don't take yourself out of a growth cycle if your body is in that mode of wanting to grow. Fuck, man, change your show. Let your body continue to grow if it's coming easy.
But I do feel like I'm running out of years. Like in your 40s, you're running out of years.
Period. I try not to think about it.
Yeah.
It's easier. I try not to think about it too, but
your perspectives change too on like substances you would consider using. I'm like thinking,
sure.
I am thinking of more longevity now. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I had a granddaughter this last year.
That's right, you did.
Yeah.
Damn, Grandpa. Oh,
that was weird. Or it's getting more normal now, feeling. But first
I got two of them. I get you. I don't let them call me Grandpa. That's fucked up. Call me something else, Pops or something. I don't know.
Big Papa.
Don't call me Grandpa. Yeah.
Big Papa.
Don't call me Grandpa. Nothing start with grand.
All right. Well, on that note, that sad, pathetic note of us missing out on life, and everybody else is too. Let's get out of here, guys, for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear with Skip Hill and S2H. I'm Scott McNally. Thank you guys for watching the live feed. We much appreciate you as always.